social media, TikTok, and a lot of the others abuse cognitive warfare, getting inside your mind. And when you pull that phone up to your face next time, or your son, your daughter, your niece, your nephew, you pull your phone up to your face, I want you to think of it as a loaded gun, because that's the power that that tiny little device has with the apps, with the internet, with cognitive warfare, disinformation, misinformation. It's working perfectly. It's got Americans at each other's throats, blacks against whites, left against right. These are all ploys to have us at each other's throats so we give up and we're ready to be taken over. So mainstream media is completely compromised as well. You're only getting the narrative that they want you to see with mainstream media. So my advice is go find other media sources that you can trust that are going to give you the 360-degree view and not just spoon-fed narrative that mainstream media is out there to provide.
Hey, let's welcome my guest, Casey Fleming, the CEO of BlackOps Partners and internationally recognized senior advisor and keynote speaker specializing in national security, counterintelligence, and strategic risk. Welcome to the show, sir, and good to see you.
Good to see you, and thanks for having me.
All right. Well, let's start with your TEDx talk that you gave 7 years ago or so. I'll link the video in the description. If you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube, feel free to jump to that video after you finish this one. I'm curious, has anything changed during this time? We have the war in Ukraine from Russia, China's threats. Has anything fundamentally changed in your message since that video? Today, I want to tell you about a book I'm reading. It's written by 25 veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces, all graduates of the Masters of Business for Veterans program at the University of Southern California. The book is called Veteran Stories of Transition and Transformation. It collects the personal stories of veterans written in their own words. Pick it up for yourself or a veteran you love. Check out the link in the description for 10% off.
My message many years ago is probably more accurate today than it was back when I did it in 2018. The only difference is that the Chinese Communist Party and the Russians and Iranians have all advanced their plan, and it's become even more serious. So the cake is kind of fully baked at this point. Before I told you all the ingredients for the cake, and the cake was just put in the oven. Well, the cake is pretty much ready to come out of the oven right now as far as the advancement of what I described back in on my TED Talk. Now, incidentally, I have been in 2 TED Talks, and I was heavily censored. And that should make everybody pretty nervous, because 2 TED Talks is under free speech in the United States. But I want to tell everybody that I was massively censored on what I could say and what I couldn't say on those 2 TED Talks.
So was it the organizers who told you what not to say and what to say?
Yes. Organizers came back after I did a dry run. They said, you can't say this, you can't say this, you can't say this. So I had to massage my way around, which was quite honestly, I've been a public speaker for a very long time, but trying to watch what you're going to say 3 sentences ahead, it made it a little different.
Interesting. Why do you think that happened? Was it because of their affiliations with certain organizations, or why do they impose the censorship?
In my opinion, it is because of infiltration and subversion inside the United States. So you're looking at pressure that's placed upon these different outlets, these different media type of outlets, that they can only say this because it supports X narrative, which is the master plan. And you can't say anything that's not part of that narrative. And that's really what we get into in regarding a book that I've recently written.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that. Is this the product of our adversaries like China and Russia, or is it a domestic actor who does this?
Most of what we're seeing from an attack perspective is through China. China is the grand puppet master. Underneath China is Russia, Iran, Pakistan, North Korea, and a few others. Underneath Iran are the terrorist organizations, and dotted line to the Chinese Communist Party are the Mexican drug cartels. So you've got this nasty, aggressive axis that's against the United States and the free world and they intend to fully take over the free world. And that's really the truth. It's pretty sobering, I know, in your podcast, but that's exactly what's going on. I've been working this problem with my company, my team, and my teams for the past 15 years. So we kind of know what we're talking about. Unfortunately, the more true that our information is, and it is very true, it means our country and the free world's doing a lot worse.
So this reminds me of the Cold War when we had the U.S. and the Soviet Union, two superpowers, and then you had proxy wars or some kind of countries that are used by these superpowers to impose their will. So would you say that now we have China, the communist China, we have the US, and all of these other parties, whether it's Russia, Iran, maybe Venezuela, maybe Cuba, Mexican cartels, and on our side, on the Western side, it could be NATO countries, Ukraine, maybe Israel. Would you say that it's a similar picture, or is it more multipolar and like India does its own thing, maybe Europe does its own thing? What's your perspective on that?
It's much worse than the Cold War. And we should not refer to this as the next Cold War or Cold War II. It's completely different. You've got not just one enemy, you've got numerous that are led by a very calculating, insidious, and diabolical enemy. This is the worst. This is the most formidable enemy the earth has ever seen. And we've built them. We built the Chinese Communist Party into who they are today with all of their intellectual property theft and their communist plans to take over the entire world. They want you to believe that it's a multipolar world. It is not. This is a bipolar world. It's freedom versus communism. That's it. If you want to go spiritual, it's good versus evil and God versus Satan. Incidentally, communism is a religion, is defined as a religion. They know it's a religion. And for it to be a religion, they have to be anti-God and anti-Christ. So if you're anti-God and anti-Christ, by definition, that means you're pro-Satan. And so in the Chinese world, Chinese communist world, you have to worship the state and the supreme leader of the state. And that's really what their religion is. And so they push out all other religions and make them null and void.
Yeah, and I definitely want to talk about Western values later on the podcast. But you said that China in its present form is a bigger threat than the Soviet Union ever was, from what I understand. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, absolutely. They've taken pretty much they've either partnered to gain our technology, our strategies, our intellectual property. They've either partnered with us through investments or through us deploying our technology in China, which when you do business in communist China, the communist regime wants all of your intellectual property and all of your data, and you must agree to that. How does that sound for being a partner? So you have to turn all of that over. So they've copied everything, or they've partnered to get it, or they've stolen what they've needed. And we buy their products like they're going out of style. So we've funded this machine, this enemy, and they are the most determined, formidable enemy on the face of the planet that it has ever been, because they've mastered technology, they've mastered innovation, they know where to steal. So say, for example, if it takes us 7 years to develop any kind of technology or innovation, cancer drug, computer chip, something like that, it takes 7 years and $3 billion. Well, if you steal it, you didn't need the 7 years and you didn't need the $3 billion. And that's what they've been doing for the past 35, 40 years. And our government's been duped, our Wall Street's been duped, and we've woken up to that 15 years ago. But Wall Street, government, they're compromised. There are many CCP operatives in government and in Wall Street and our companies. They work inside the US borders and inside these companies. And so it's a very, very nasty problem. And quite honestly, this is what World War III looks like. This is no Cold War. We are in World War III, and that's what it looks like. It's called the gray zone. All of us in the West, we don't think like the Chinese communists. We don't think like them. And don't forget, we lost the last 2 times we went against them, which was Korea and Vietnam. And yes, I consider a tie, I consider that a loss. So because we didn't understand the Chinese communists and how they are so ruthless, even to their own people, they're murderous, even to their own people, worst on the planet. And all that combined. So we have to take these guys extremely seriously. The biggest thing I can say is stop buying Chinese products and stop investing with companies that do business with China, and demand that all this foreign influence is banned, whether it's help, whether it's money, whether it's stock. This foreign influence is way down the road on destroying and taking over our country. So banning all foreign influence is something we need to do. And everybody in your audience has to get involved. If it's a world war, and it is, you're involved whether you know it or not. So the gray zone, we all believe and know what the difference is between peace and war. And we think, well, if we're in war, our military will protect us. That is not the case. The gray zone is that big area in between peace and war, just shy or just short of actual kinetic war. So all these different things of stealing intellectual property and cognitive war, which is TikTok, drug war, which is fentanyl, economic war. There's over 150 different wars underneath the master umbrella called unrestricted war. And they even told us what they were going to do back in 1999. Two Chinese colonels wrote a book called Unrestricted War, and they published that book, and that's pretty much dictating what they're going to do. They've expanded it. In that book, there were probably, a dozen or so methods that they talked about, but over the years, they've increased that to well over 150 methods of destroying your enemy, just short of kinetic warfare. So it weakens your enemy from within. So we're ready for takeover, and it destroys our will and our ability to fight.
Yeah, and it's clear how they execute their warfare. The question is, you said that their end goal is to control the world. So is that part of the doctrine that you mentioned in those books, or how do you know that they want to actually conquer the world, whether through, these indirect means or maybe militarily?
Well, we've run an intelligence organization for the past 15 years. It includes a think tank, and it includes services to the Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 around strategic risk. So we've been working this problem. My company and my team have been working this problem for 15 years. And all day, every day, 7 days a week, 365 a year, we see the intelligence and the counterintelligence all day, every day. So this is not speculation. This isn't conspiracy theory. It's the analogy is, I'm your brother that came back from the front. I've seen the war. I've seen the battle, and you're in it. And I'm back for Thanksgiving, or I'm back for Christmas, just to tell you what I've been up to. So it's not speculation. It's not conspiracy theory. In fact, the book that's coming out actually is a survival guide, and it connects all the dots and with top experts. And again, none of this is opinion. It's all based on intelligence.
Yeah, and tell me more about that book.
The book, it's called The Red Tsunami. And you can go to that website, The Red Tsunami. And the book is there. You can pre-order it. And then you can also, and then the release date is in late January. But the book, every time I speak, seriously, every time I speak, people say, where's your book? There's usually two questions. Where's your book? And what do I need to do tomorrow morning? And how can I help fix this tomorrow morning? So there's a book and there's a movement. So the Red Tsunami, by the way, the subtitle is The Red Tsunami, the Silent Storm Killing Your Freedom. That's really what's going on here. And that's communism takes over, replaces freedom slowly but surely and very insidiously. You don't really see it and you don't really notice it. So the book points all of this out. And again, it's really not a book, it's a survival guide. And it connects all the dots. COVID, all the different things. Everybody knows ever since COVID happens, people are saying, will somebody please step forward and just connect the dots? Well, most people can't because they work for the federal government or the military. Most people won't because they're worried about their retirement or they're worried about their personal safety. I'm the kind of guy that I've been built. My family was all about selfless service. All my training has been about selfless service. So if it comes across my desk, I'm one of the guys that'll actually act upon it. So that's the reason for the book/survival guide. And then there's a movement behind that. It's a membership movement, kind of like Costco. You join it. It's an annual membership, but we represent everybody to turn this ship around. And the problem is this ship is well sailed toward communism and communist takeover. And again, everybody is looking for someone to connect the dots. I don't really want to be the guy. I'm not a book guy. I don't want to write books. I still don't want to write a book, but I'm writing the book. I'm doing it for God and country and my friends and neighbors and colleagues and brothers and sisters in the free world, because it needs to be exposed. The biggest thing that the communists and these movements fear is that the rest of us become informed and we become united. That's their biggest fear. And that's what we do here with the book and the movement.
And looking at history and human nature, we can see that before the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, or before we actually experience the direct attack from the enemy, people are divided. People don't have strong opinions. People don't want to worry about that. So do you think that China, and assuming what you talked about is right, do you think they will continue with this hybrid warfare tactics up until it's too late to before American people and people in the West in general realize where we are? Or do you think that the military threat and an actual war with guns and maybe something close to what we have in Ukraine today will happen anytime soon?
Well, the Chinese Communist Party will not cease their efforts to weaken us from within with this whole unrestricted warfare strategy and their actions. But the last phase of unrestricted warfare is kinetic war or conventional war with battleships, troops, guns, drones, and so on. So they're not going to let up. They've got this blood oath with Russia, Iran, Pakistan, North Korea, and a few others, terrorist organizations, drug cartels. So this is not going to change. And the issue is this war is not focused on our military. Our military is not there to protect us against all these 150 methods. I mentioned drug warfare, fentanyl, carfentanil, vaping products, digital fentanyl, which is social media, and dopamine. So you've got all these things. Yes, the Chinese Communist Party are abusing it and using it and weaponizing it against us, our freedom, and our families. But we're on the front lines. Social media, TikTok, and a lot of the others abuse cognitive warfare, getting inside your mind. And when you pull that phone up to your face next time, or your son, your daughter, your niece, your nephew, you pull your phone up to your face, I want you to think of it as a loaded gun, because that's the power that that tiny little device has with the apps, with the internet, with cognitive warfare, disinformation, misinformation. It's working perfectly. It's got Americans at each other's throats. Blacks against whites, left against right, defund the police, Black Lives Matter, all these different things. These are all ploys to have us at each other's throats. So we give up and we're ready to be taken over. Or even worse, have a civil war to where we're weakened by a civil war and then we're able to be taken over. So it's much worse than people understand. We have Chinese special forces inside our borders because of the open borders. The intelligence community estimates there's over 200,000 special forces, Chinese communist special forces in U.S. cities. Now, 200,000, that's the size of Salt Lake City or Akron, Ohio. That's what's inside, sleeping in sleeper cells to be activated at a moment's notice. You've got, the FBI came out years ago and said that the biggest single threat, the single largest threat to the future of the United States is communist China. They've said that for the past 5, 6, 7 years. Also, the director of national intelligence has come out and said that. They've even said they're in our critical infrastructure, but they don't give any details. So what does that mean, they're in our critical infrastructure? Well, they've put products inside our critical infrastructure, electricity, gasoline, natural gas, internet. They put Chinese products in there, communist regime products that can be shut off with a flick of a switch. So it's a kill switch. So at a time of their choosing, they do a kill switch, they activate these troops, and so on. So you've got all this. I mean, there's a lot more detail to it. And I will say to the audience that when I got into this 15 years ago, I'm no different than you. My first 30 days was, they aren't doing this. You're nuts. And the next 30 days of intelligence, wow, they could be doing this. And the next 30 days is like, oh my gosh, they are doing this. Now, it's not 30, 30, 30 anymore. It's more like a week, and a week after everybody went through COVID and they knew there was something bigger going on. Just understand that everything is weaponized against you. Every bit of technology that comes out can be weaponized against you, and it is. And even the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party came out and said a couple of years ago, I am weaponizing everything against the West. So we are in a war. We and our families are on the front lines of this war through all these different methods of weakening us and attacking us, all the way down to cognitive warfare, which I mentioned to you includes psychological warfare, narrative or narration warfare. All that's underneath cognitive warfare. And the main tool for cognitive is media, whether it's mainstream media or social media. So mainstream media is completely compromised as well. You're only getting the narrative that they want you to see with mainstream media. So my advice is go find other media sources that you can trust that are going to give you the 360-degree view and not just spoon-fed narrative that mainstream media is out there to provide. The survival guide is something that I'm not out here selling books. I wrote the book, like I said, for God and country. I'm just making people aware that there is a survival guide. I've hurt myself putting it together for everybody, but it was a labor of love, and it will absolutely give you the skills to see through all this chaos, see through the fog of war, and it'll maintain your own critical thinking so you can see what to do and how to proceed forward, protect yourself and your family.
And how effective is Trump's administration today fighting this war with China? Because at least from what I can see, the focus on China is much more prominent compared to what it was with the previous administration. So do you think they are taking the right steps towards addressing this big issue, or do you think more needs to be done to fight Chinese?
So the Trump administration is doing a lot of the right things. They need to double down and do more. I completely disagree with approving TikTok in the United States. It should have been 100% banned. There's no way, and I'm a technology executive. And there's no way you can sterilize software developed by the Chinese Communist Party for their espionage and weaponization tactics. There's no way you can scrub that or clean that or sanitize that and make it real. So we need a US based social media platform that cannot be weaponized. And I said a long time ago when TikTok first hit the US, which it never should have been allowed in the US, that it's a weaponized military platform in the hands of our children. That's what I called it 5, 6, 7. I know this is sobering. I know you want to be in denial and not accept what's going on. My point is, do you want to know that somebody's pouring gasoline on your house to light it on fire, or you just want to be in the house while it catches fire? I'd like to know that somebody's out there throwing gas on my house so I can either get out or I can stop them. But that's just me. So other people want to stay in the world of denial as long as they possibly can. Again, what I can tell you is I've been doing this for 15 years with my team, my group, our clients. I advise government agencies all around the world, specifically US and the free nations. And this is what we talk about. But nobody will come out and tell you what's going on because of what I said when we first kicked this thing off.
And as you mentioned, a big part of this problem is the division domestically inside the US. We have two different cultures inside America. We have old school Christian, patriotic America, and we have this, new progressive quote unquote movement, and they clash with each other. How can we find unity to fight the common enemy unless we, get struck by their missiles or something?
Great question. So here's the answer. The answer is if you love America and you love your freedom, then you have to do everything necessary to protect it. You used a word progressive. Progressive is another word for communism. So you're never going to appease progressive because communism and freedom, communism and capitalism can never mix. It's oil and water, will never mix. They're arch enemies. The Chinese Communist Party has labeled us white pigs in the United States and in Canada and Australia, and we need to be destroyed. And he presents that, and the children are taught that in China. And remember, we've done this for 15 years, all day, every day. So the key is the rest of us on the left and the center and the right, we are all Americans, and those things that bind us together. We have a lot more things that bind us together than what we have and we share with our enemy, which is the Chinese Communist Party and their axis of aggressors. So for the rest of Americans, which I'm saying probably 95% of Americans, we're all bound together because of freedom, because of America, because of the Constitution, because of our rights. And we share, so we're those things that bind us closer together than what we have with communists in China, communists or leftover communists in Russia and around the world. So those things that bind us together, we have to get together. And that's really honestly, again, why I wrote the survival guide is to pull everybody together. When you connect the dots, you're able to see clearly who is part of the problem trying to destroy the United States and what you need to do to fix this or what you need to do to resist it. Do not expect your government to fix it. They haven't fixed it in the past. They're working on it now. But if you're putting all your eggs in the government basket, I'm telling you, after advising the government for many, many years, they don't have your back. They can barely get out of their own way right now. So the key on this whole thing is uniting all Americans underneath the same education, the same training, and then the same unity movement to make action happen. So a lot of what you describe, this progressive, I'm glad you used that word. Progressive, they hide under democracy. They don't want democracy. Progressivism wants full-blown communism. That's what it's all about. And it's everywhere in the United States. So we have to understand, and by the way, every American votes every day. You say, how do they vote every day? With your wallet. So if we point out to you, don't buy products from this CCP focused company or that CCP focused company, anything that's going to build the Chinese Communist Party, we're going to tell you, don't spend your money there, spend your money over here. That's the biggest thing and the most effective thing. The other thing is with many, many Americans, part of this movement and the book, The Survival Guide, we now can speak as a massive block of Americans. Yes, peacefully, but also go to Congress and say, we don't want this. We want this. And you will do this. And so it's a much bigger voice right now. And that's really what the issue is. Our enemy loves our open society. They use it against us. Our enemy loves to compromise, pay campaign funds, give checks to people in business and in government. So we are fully compromised. So the only way out of this is through unity. Again, we're all bonded together, all of it. 5% of us are all bonded together as Americans. We want the same childhood that we had for our children. We want opportunity, and we don't want to have enemies that are trying to take us over. So we want a secure nation, and we want strong national security for us and our allies around the world that also enjoy freedom. So this war has everybody, every man, woman, child, young adult on the front lines. This is not a military war. It's everything short of military and may never, ever go to military if the CCP is successful in all their different methods to weaken us.
Great. Well, thank you for joining me today. I'll make sure the links are in the description to your book and to other resources. And I appreciate you coming over and sharing all of this important information today.
Well, Danny, thanks for having me on your show. You've got a fantastic show, and I appreciate you having me on. Thanks.